What's going on, you guys? It's Rahul, and as you guys can tell, this is not a traditional video at all. I'm joined by my friend here, Arman. Say hello, Arman.
What's up?
Yeah, we've been internet friends for a few years. We met on Twitter, and yeah, Arman also has a YouTube channel as well. I'll put the link to that in the description below. But yeah, we pretty much just came up with the idea to collab one day, and yeah, we decided, you know what, let's yeah, we're just gonna collab, and as you guys can tell from the title and the thumbnail, sorry about that. We're gonna be talking about the Sacramento Kings because they have not been had a very good season so far, and us, along with NBA fans alike, and especially Kings fans, we've been disappointed in them. And they recently fired their head coach Mike Brown, who won Coach of the Year just 2 seasons ago. So, yeah. But anyways, before we do get started, of course, go ahead and hit the like button if you guys end up enjoying the video, because it really does help out the channel. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any new videos like the one you're watching right now. And make sure you guys check out Armand's channel and you guys sub to him. But yeah, without further ado, yeah, let's just get talking about the Kings. So, I mean, I was just wondering, like, what were your expectations for Sacramento, like, heading into this year?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So I don't exactly remember where I had them. I think I had them. I definitely had them between like the 5 and 9 range. And somebody else like our things like a podcast group kind of thing for our channel. And somebody there had the Kings as the 1 seed in the West.
Bro,
So
what the hell? The one seed? And I
yeah,
don't think the biggest Kings fan would say that.
he was not a Kings fan. He was a Knicks fan.
Bro,
He said
wow.
he said I can't remember if he was joking or not, but I don't think he was. He said that the Kings were gonna be the 1 seed, and
The one seed,
the
that is
one
insane. But where'd you have them, by the way?
I can't remember the exact numbers in the 5 to 9 range,
Five
but
to nine inch. Oh, okay, that sounds yeah, that sounds like most people. I checked my predictions today. Like I went back to my predictions video and I had them as like the sixth seed, I think. And I thought that would be like a first round exit, which I thought, I think that was like most people's expectations, like being like a playing team, lower level playoff team, and then like a first round exit. Which yeah, it's not like super exciting, but it's a lot better than what they're on track for right now. Because as it
it's
stands right now.
a lot more exciting than where they've been the last 20 years.
Yeah, that's for sure. Dude, no offense to any Kings fans watching this video. Like, just a question. Like, how are you guys, like, still alive and, like, sane human beings? Like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If I was a Kings fan, I don't know. I'd consider ending it all. Okay, that's a joke. But, like, real talk, bro. The Kings are, like, a depressing-ass franchise. But,
Yeah,
yeah, man. Like, I mean, the Kings, I mean, this year, as it stands right now, they're, like, 13 and 18, and they're, like, the 12 seed in the Western Conference. And if the season were to end today, they'd obviously miss the play-in tournament. And I mean, I was like wondering, Armand, like, what do you think the biggest issue, like, what do you think one of their biggest issues is?
all right, so the first thing is a lot of people took for granted how healthy they were compared to the rest of the conference when they did go to the playoffs because they were the 3rd seed with
Mhm.
I think 48 wins, and that was with their core players missing combined like 50 games or something. This past year, like they obviously had a lot more injuries, and even this year there's been some injuries, and also the fact that they went and signed DeMar DeRozan, who like made them a slower paced offense than what like he needs a slower methodical type of offense to succeed, while while the rest of the team has been super fast paced in terms of creating their offense over the last 2 years, and that's really been what the Kings' strength was towards what made them so successful over the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. I mean, I remember like last year. I mean, even last year was a kind of like an underwhelming season for Sacramento. Like they barely missed out in the playoffs after being the three seed, and a lot of people were saying that they only made it in the playoffs in 2023 because all those teams had their injuries. And I guess it was a valid point to an extent, but either way, I thought even I mean either way. I was still expecting Sacramento to be a lot better. I thought it was still viable for them to make the playoffs, even with all these teams being healthy. But yeah, like, to your point about DeMar DeRozan, I do agree. I do agree, man. I mean, DeMar DeRozan, he hasn't been terrible, like outright terrible for them. But the problem is, he's just not a very good fit because, like you mentioned before, he's not. He's like a a guy who kind of needs like a slower paced offense to succeed because he's not much of a 3-point shooter. And the Kings offense, one of the reasons why it was so good, 2 years ago, is because, it was so fast paced. But DeMar DeRozan, I mean, his play style just doesn't mesh, I feel like, with the rest of the team. He's ball dominant. He needs the ball in his hands to succeed. And along with that, because he's not much of a 3-point shooter, and along with that, he is just not a very good defender. And I'll admit, like, at the time when Sacramento signed DeMar DeRozan, I thought, I thought it was like okay. Like, I thought there's definitely some positives about it, but also some negatives. Like, as for positives, like, I thought the Kings needed another shot creator next to De'Aaron Fox because when Malik Monk got injured in 2024, the Kings' shot creation outside of De'Aaron Fox was kind of non-existent. So DeMar DeRozan definitely did address that. However, at the same time, again, he just wasn't a very good fit, and I definitely was iffy about, again, his lack of a three-point shot and, his lack of defense. So, yeah.
No, no, no. Yeah, those are also valid points. And I remember a lot of Kings fans probably gave me a lot of slack for the lack of injury concern because of being a Pacers fan and me wanting to win the trade. But I mean, it was a good trade for both sides. Like, Sabonis is actually a very good player. He's their best player, and I don't know how much of a hot take that is, but because I know Fox probably has a lot more supporters, but Sabonis is their best player. They should run their offense through him because he's more of the distributor, but he could score. Apparently, he's been one of the most efficient scorers of all time the last few years too.
Damn, that's true. I mean, he does have like a really high field goal percentage, to be fair.
He is not taking a lot of shots, and I think a lot of that is because DeMar DeRozan has been taking a lot of them, and then Fox has also been taking a lot of them. Fox is a very good player as well. Fox and Sabonis, like, they fit well together. I feel like adding DeRozan kind of messed that up a little bit, but like, in my opinion, this is very funny, but a player that would have been such a good fit for them at that spot would have been Buddy Hield, but
They traded him away, ironically.
Yep, that's the funny thing, or like any sort of like shooter, 3-point shooter like that, because to help get guys like Herter and Keegan Murray more space open, because those guys have had both not been shooting the ball well at all, and I think a lot of that is because there has not been much spacing in that Kings offense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess speaking of those like role players like Keegan Murray, Kevin Herter, like that's another thing like about Sacramento this year. I feel like their players outside of like their three best guys in Fox, Sabonis, and DeRozan and Malik Monk, I feel like they just haven't been playing well. Like their role players just haven't been playing well. Kevin Herter, he struggled last season, and this year it's been more the same. Keegan Murray, I liked him. I thought he was pretty good his first 2 years, but this year he hasn't been good shooting the ball, at all. Like, he's still a good defender. In fact, he's like one of the few good defenders on this team, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But he hasn't been playing well. Trey Lyles has been really mediocre. Malik Monk, like I said before, has been good, but he is a little bit one-dimensional because he can really just score the ball. Keon Ellis he's actually been playing very well for them. However, the Kings, they don't have a good backup center. I mean, Alex Len is their backup center, and he doesn't play like a lot of minutes, and that's for a very good reason. He's not a very good player. So yeah, I mean, Sacramento, I feel like their depth is just pretty it's not very good.
Not at all, no. And I think that's another thing is they kind of just stood pat where they were, like after they made the playoffs. And I think like when they could have went out and signed some players or traded for somebody to help bring depth to the team, and that's the same thing that's kind of happening with your team, the Nuggets.
Yeah.
With in terms of like just not bringing in depth for whatever reason. But I don't know. I mean, like the Kings, they kind of ran it back with the team whose ceiling was always going to be a first round exit.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I mean, the Kings, again, like, credit to them. Obviously, like, when they made the playoffs 2 seasons ago, it was magical. Like, damn near everybody was happy for them. But like, we knew that wasn't a championship caliber team. They're like a first to second round exit, and look, that 2023 team wasn't bad, but they definitely needed improvements, like you said before, and I feel like after that season, like again, they got like maybe like a little bit complacent, and then when they did try to improve it, they didn't really do it well. Like I feel like that money that they spent on DeMar DeRozan, they could have spent it on like role players to help fill out their depth, like get a backup center, maybe get some like 3 and D forwards and whatnot. So that's a big issue. But I also want to talk about like the Kings defense because the Kings defense has been like really bad the last few years. Even when they made the playoffs,
Mhm.
they were not a good defensive team. And as it stands right now, they're like 15th in defensive net rating and 17th in opponent points per game. So,
Okay.
I mean, it's been mediocre, and I think this is mostly just a personnel issue. Like they have very few good defenders on their team. Keon Ellis is a good defender. Keegan Murray's a good defender. Trey Lyles is fine, but outside of those guys, I mean,
Not
they don't
anything.
have very many good defensive players. Like De'Aaron Fox is all right. Sabonis isn't good. DeRozan isn't good. Herter ain't that good defensively. Monk isn't really much of a defender either. So
I mean, yeah, but I think a lot of that is fine for them because that was what their team was made to be like that fast paced juggernaut team that will win like 140 to 130 type of games. Like they were built to be an 82 game season, not 82 game season, 82 game team,
mhm.
but they kind of don't like it's weird because it's like they kind of don't have that anymore, and I think a lot of that is because their money spent on DeRozan was just hasn't worked. And I think another thing is a lot of those teams that have elite defenses has a elite defensive like rim protector. Like
Mhm.
you look at Minnesota last year, you look at the Thunder this year. You know
The
the
Rockets.
Kings, yeah, the Kings. Their center Domantas Sabonis is not much of a defender, and they don't really have the guys on the perimeter to do that either.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a good point. I mean, yeah, that brings me again to like the personnel issue. Like again, there's just not very many good defenders, and I mean, Domantas Sabonis, like you said before, he is the Kings' best player in your opinion, and I mean, some people might dispute that. At the bare minimum, though, he's their second best player, and at the end of the day, he is very good. However, one of his issues is again like he is not a good defender, and that was a big issue in that playoff series, 2 seasons ago against the Warriors, and
Yeah, Looney out rebounded him like crazy.
oh yeah, dude, Domantas Sabonis, he did not play well in that series whatsoever. And I feel like Sacramento. Look, when you see, like you said, that is a good point. Like a lot of the best defensive teams, I feel like have, what's it called, like like a defensive center, and Sacramento doesn't have that. So I feel like they really could have, they really should have been like, what? Because we don't have a good defensive center, let's go ahead and get good perimeter defenders around him. That way we can try and
Mm,
kind of mask his defensive
yeah.
deficiencies. But they just haven't. Again, they just haven't done a good job addressing their defense. And as for like, you know, you were saying that they're kind of built to win those high scoring games. I do agree. Like they definitely were built to win those high scoring games, and they remind me a little bit, I guess, of your team in the Indiana Pacers, where they are not good defensively, but they're a great offensive team, and they're very fast paced, and they're meant to win those like shootout type games. But because they've had to play at a slower pace, the formula just hasn't worked. And talking a little bit about Mike Brown, I think he was scapegoated, and I think Sacramento made a mistake firing him. Like, he was a really good head coach. Yeah, he wasn't perfect, but at the end of the day, he took them to the playoffs for the first time in what, 16, 17 years, and he
Record
wasn't even,
setting.
yeah, it was record setting. I
Almost.
mean, it, yeah, bro, like, I mean, he did a lot for this team, and he was legitimately good, and again, like I said before, I think he was unfairly fired.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, another thing with the roster construction, they built it kind of desperately to make the playoff because they haven't been in so long that they didn't think about the next step.
Yeah, for sure. Like I remember some people were even talking about like a little bit about like the Kings and their true ceiling. Like some people were saying like, oh, they might eventually end up, being stuck in purgatory and whatnot, where they're kind of just like a first, second round exit, but not really much of a contender. And
I mean,
I thought they were right, but I guess, and usually I am against teams staying in purgatory, but for Sacramento, I kind of gave an exception. Like, this the Kings haven't been to the playoffs in years and whatnot. I feel like just give them like a taste of success before you eventually do choose to rebuild. But yeah, yeah, I mean, that's really all I got to say for that. And I was like wondering, like, what do you think about like Mike Brown being fired?
I think he is a very good coach, and I mean, he was the best coach they could have had for that roster, almost. I mean, have they announced who their new head coach is? I'm sure they have by now. I
Yeah,
didn't
they have.
know
His
who it
name
was.
it was like Doug sorry, it was Doug Christie. He was their assistant head
Christie.
coach. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I mean, he'll probably have similar personnel, but it's like, but I don't know. I mean, like he brought them their first success, and he kind of brought that roster together. I don't know if I mean they probably didn't think they were going to win the finals with him, and I mean they probably weren't with that roster anyways.
hmm
But I also heard that Fox wanted Brown gone. I don't know if that's true or not.
Oh yeah, I did hear
It is.
reports like he apparently had like a meeting with the Kings, and then like shortly afterwards, they fired Mike Brown. So
Yeah, I think I don't really know. I mean, we'll see how the new guy does. But I mean, this team's ceiling is probably the play-in. Maybe they sneak in the first round, but I don't know. Like, and their future is not like as bright as people probably have thought it would be.
yeah, definitely. I mean, speaking about the Kings' future, like. I mean, yeah, a few years ago, a lot of people thought like, oh, things are finally looking up, but now, I mean, it looks kind of bleak because, De'Aaron Fox, he has like 2 years, I think, left on his deal, and I think he is eligible for a supermax, but there are some rumblings that they might trade him because I think he hired Rich Paul as his agent and whatnot, and like, there's reports saying that his camp is kind of just considering like all options pretty much. So, I don't think they will trade him, but if he does request a trade, they might have to. And yeah, I mean, like you said before, I think we will see how Doug Christie does as their interim head coach. Maybe he is really good and he does turn them around and they are able to make the playoffs and maybe they even win the playoff series or something like that. But I feel like their ceiling is again kind of just like a first round exit at this point. And
I
if they
think
can't really find a if they can't really find a way to like improve this roster and get much better, then I feel like this team might be forced to rebuild yet again. So, I
I mean, I
mean,
think Kings fans would be okay with first or second round exit as their
yeah,
ceiling.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, if I was a Kings fan, I'd probably be fine with that too. Maybe after a few years, I'd get a little bit annoyed with it, but like, give me like a few playoff appearances, you know?
yeah.
That's for sure. I mean, I guess. I will say, I mean, before we do end the video, I was gonna say, like, I feel like maybe the Kings could consider trading DeMar DeRozan, because to be fair, his contract is actually not that terrible. It's like 3 years, and he's making like 24 million a year, which is a tradable deal. The only thing is like, who's gonna take him? But if the Kings can somehow find, a trade suitor for DeMar DeRozan, and they can get some good role players in return, I'd 100% do it if I'm them.
I don't even know who would want DeRozan though.
Yeah,
Like, I was thinking the Nets, but they probably are rebuilding. There's probably the Heat if they were to move on from Jimmy Butler, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like their best bet is just try and get as many picks as they can from the Spurs or the Thunder for Fox. Probably the Spurs. I mean, Fox and Wemby would be pretty fun to watch.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, again, I think that would be a pretty good idea. Like, I think what the Kings probably do this year is maybe just try to win as much as they can. And depending on how this year goes, maybe they'll decide from there, like, oh, do we choose to rebuild yet again, or do we try and improve this roster to win now? So,
Yeah, I mean, I think what's going to end up happening is they'll probably run through this season. They might make playoffs, might not. And then they'll go and get. They'll probably shop Fox or Sabonis, maybe Demar, but I don't think anybody wants Demar at this point.
yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, make sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, thank you Armand for joining the channel. And again, make sure to check his channel out. The link to his channel is in the description below. And then follow us on social media. The links to our Twitter and Instagram, I'm going to put that in the description below as well. But yeah, guys, without further ado, I guess we're both out.
All right, thank you for having me. See you.